Welcome to Build, a podcast from Danville First Baptist Church. Build is where Sunday's message becomes Monday's conversation. Each episode, we dig deeper into what God is teaching us, talk about how it shows up in real life, and help you keep building your faith beyond the weekend. Let's get started. Welcome to Build, the podcast of FBC Danville, where we aim to build on Sunday's sermon and ultimately build on our relationship with Christ. This is our second week in Words Matter, and it took us to Ephesians 4. Did I remember that correctly?
Yep.
I have no notes, so I'm just
winging it.
Ephesians 4, and Paul telling us things to cast off and things to put on. If you call yourself a believer, these are things that you should let go of and things that you should pick up. And so I'll let you explain a little bit more in that area.
Yeah, you bet. We looked at Ephesians 4, 25 through 32, and the section right before that where we picked up, Paul talks about taking off the old self and putting on the new, taking off your old, dirty, nasty grave clothes, putting on your new. And so one way to kind of say this that I didn't mention at all this morning is, to me, that's the moment of salvation. And then Paul is then detailing out sanctification. So you get the new clothes at salvation. But for some reason, in our sanctification process with our old sin nature and our flesh, we tend to want to put back on that old self. And Paul uses this analogy to say, look how foolish this is. Look how gross this is that you're doing. This is what you're doing when you are dabbling in deceitfulness, when you're dabbling in telling lies, when you're stealing, when you're not working hard, when you're doing any kind of malice, when you're using foul, rotten language, that's your old self. And you would look so foolish if you had on grave clothes walking around as a person that's alive. But that's what you're doing when you do that. So he tells us what to take off and what to put on. And that last verse is a verse that is a really popular verse, a verse that a lot of people know is Ephesians 4:32, that to be kind and compassionate, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God has forgiven you. And that's kind of the culmination end of this section and the one that everybody remembers. But the part of this section that I hope we took away from today is you can talk about being kind, but really being kind is telling the truth and doing all these other things and not doing these other, like, that's what that actually is. It's not just saying nice things and smiling and being happy and those types of things. It's actually doing things that bring goodness into people's lives and brings heaven to earth, as we like to say. So that was kind of the crux of it today, was that words matter. We need to be speaking life. Even got a Toby Mac reference in there, so feeling good about that.
Yeah, I think so much of that is good, and to me, it covers a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when we think about taking off the old man and putting on the new, I instantly, I think, both to the demon possessed maniac and also to Lazarus, to what you were speaking of. Lazarus was called out of the tombs after 4 days of being in there. Mm-hmm. How ignorant would it have been for him to, about a week or two later, say, you know what, I'm just going to go stay. I'm not going to stay there all the time. I'm just going to go spend the night back in the tomb. I kind of liked that. It was comfortable. But that's what we do when we dabble in sin once we're saved, or when we say, like, oh, well, this is just who I am. This is a battle for me. And it is. I mean, that's the reality, is we all have things that are difficult for us to overcome and difficult for us to fight. But if we would get that visualization, that it would be the same as Lazarus going to hang out in the tomb that he was once buried in when Jesus had called him out.
Yes.
It'd be ignorant for him to go use that as a summer cottage.
Right.
But we want to do that. Well, when I'm with this group, I kind of, I know it's not great, but we don't have a good enough view of how God views what he saved us from. Mm-hmm. We don't have a good enough view of what God has saved us from, if that's our heart set and our mindset. And so that visualization really stuck out to me this morning as you were preaching. And then just also, not when we're talking about speaking life, we think so much of Scripture is about what we're not supposed to do. Take this off, take this off. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. But Jesus lays it out clear. Paul lays it out clearly here in Ephesians, but Jesus, throughout his ministry, he's like, it's not just what you don't do, but let's replace it with what we do, what we should do.
Yes.
Don't let any foul language come out of your mouth, but be full of kindness and compassion.
Mhm.
Like it's more than just behavior modification. We talk about that, I feel like every week to a
It's more
degree.
than thou shalt not.
Yeah.
It's more than, if you never say a cuss word, but your heart is full of envy and you're gossiping and you're talking bad about people and you're keeping trouble stirred up around you. Yeah, you didn't cuss, but you haven't lived up to what the law actually means.
Right.
And so I really like the fact you took it like Jesus always does in his teachings. Let's take it to the next level. And
Yeah.
I felt like that this morning we did that.
Mhm.
I like that. We talked about that some in Bible study this morning with the students. We're looking at Luke 3 with John the Baptist's public ministry. Preparing the way for the Lord, and he comes right off the bat, and he's like, "Hey, you guys think it's because you're physical Jews that you're from the seed of Abraham that you're good, and that's ain't happening. Like the axe is ready to chop down that tree. That's over with. That's not a thing anymore. You have to have faith, and that's such a paradigm shifting, earth foundation shattering thing for someone to say to a fellow Israelite at that time, and they say, well, then what do we do?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting how this jumped out at me, and it's funny how the Word of God, we're in two different places, but they overtwine and it makes you see something differently. He does the same. He doesn't say, well, you have to be a missionary in Africa, to piggyback off of last week. You know what I mean? Some people do actually are called to that,
Mhm.
but he says, if you're a tax collector, like, stop being a liar and a cheat.
Yeah.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah.
If you've got 2 shirts, then let somebody borrow one. And if you've got extra food, then let somebody have some food. If you're a soldier, don't take advantage of people at the tip of your spear, or the tip of your sword. Like, be a good soldier. He doesn't say stop being a tax collector,
Right.
stop
Right.
being
Yeah,
a
that's
soldier,
right.
right? It doesn't say, no, I put this thing inside of you that you're supposed to be and you're supposed to work towards, and you're supposed to, you have this burning desire to be this thing because that's the, how I made you. Oh, but you can't do that now,
Yeah.
which is what the world tells you will happen when you
Yeah.
follow Jesus. And
That's
I
right.
think the exact opposite happens. I
Me
think
too.
when you follow Christ, he actually brings you to that calling to fulfill that calling. I asked Jake this morning, I said, Jake, what do you want to do? He said, I want to be a football coach. I said, and the world would tell you, if you follow Jesus, you can't do that. You've got to go, again, be the, missionary in the middle of nowhere. When in reality, as a full-fledged, sold-out Jesus follower, that's a football coach, you probably could do more good for the kingdom doing that than you could just about anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And if it's what God has called you to, then it is what you can do the most good doing, right? And it reminds me of that saying. I don't remember where I heard it or who I heard it from, but it said, if you want to honor God, if you're a shoemaker and you want to honor God, don't do it by putting crosses on the shoe. Do it by making the best shoe.
It's good.
Right? And I was like, oh, that's good. Not that you can't put a cross on there, but like, don't make a crappy
that
shoe.
doesn't-
Yeah, don't make a crappy shoe, slap a cross on it and say, oh, I'm honoring God by being a shoemaker. No. Be the best shoemaker there is.
Yeah,
That's
good.
more honoring than anything.
It kind of makes me think, thinking about what is it you're going to do? What are you called to do? What do you want to do? All of those questions that you ask yourself, I guess, through life, because I don't know when that exactly ends, that you stop wondering what you're going to do when you grow up.
Right.
But I know, so for me, I know I was called to vocational ministry at age 14, and that was a part of who I was, and I would like to say that because knowing that pushed me to do some things better. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it did on some levels. That's not what I'm talking about right now. But as life went, then I found myself, trying to figure out what else am I supposed to do? I don't know. I don't even know a way to put that. Like, somewhere along the way, I feel like I let life take over, and so I've done a lot of things. I tried a lot of things, and
A lot of
a lot
things.
of things.
It's good at a lot of things.
And I will say I found success in all of those things, and I was never satisfied. And it took a drastic change of walking back really into what was a different calling. But I now, when you can turn around and kind of see where you were brought along the way, it took something major like that to bring me back to that this is the thing that I was called to. But along that way, I learned that everyone is called to something, but we're all called to serve. We're all called to minister. We're all called to evangelize. And you do that within wherever you're placed.
Right.
If we were all preachers and teachers of the word in a church, how does that?
What happens when our car breaks down?
Exactly.
Like
that's not the design. I really think that I'm saying all of this to say you're right. This sounds so weird to say. It's everybody else that's not a vocational minister that's actually doing the bulk of the ministry, or should be.
Right.
I'm not saying that it's because we only work 1 to 2 days a week. It's not because of that. It's because we're supposed to go from here into all of our respective areas of the world and continue what's happening on Sunday, continue what's happening on Wednesday, anytime that we gather. Spread that and share that in all of your places, because we can't be in each one of those places.
The bulk of life happens outside of the church.
Absolutely.
And so the bulk of the kingdom work happens outside of the church. And we as vocational ministers should be part of that work that takes place outside of the church. But most of our life takes place here at the church.
Yes.
And so, it's a good point you're making there, Josh.
Well, I feel like you guys, your primary role as full-time ministry, vocational ministry, is to equip the saints to the word. We've gotten it wrong in this country too much.
Yeah.
That this is where bring your friends to church so that they can hear about Jesus. Bring your friends to church so they can hear how they're supposed to live. Bring your friends to church. The reality is, church is primarily for believers.
Yeah.
To be equipped and to be encouraged and to be pushed to do ministry to a lost and fallen world, where a lost and fallen world meets on a daily basis.
Right.
And so your role as full-time vocational ministers is vitally important. It's when non-full-time people begin to look at you as this is what ministry is. And really your primary, in my opinion, your primary service is to help us be more effective when we go out from this place.
Right.
And yes, we love to see people saved at church, and we love to see a great movement of God within the church.
Mm-hmm.
But again, even with a great movement of God, the purpose of that
Just to go out
is for what happens next. It's not so that we can feel warm and fuzzy and, church was so good, we felt the presence of God. Well, good. What are you going to do about it?
Right.
Because if you come into the presence of God, there's zero examples in Scripture of people who came into the presence of God and left unchanged.
Right.
They all had an experience that pushed them on to what was next. And now for some of them, they rejected that experience and went the other way, but they didn't just leave. They had to make a decision. That's what comes down week after week. I say it, but bring us to a place of decision.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do next?
Right. Yeah. And the ones that did accept that work of God, whatever it was, couldn't help but go talk about it.
Right.
Had to.
And
So I'm going to make us feel really bad because
Sweet.
it just made me, as you were saying that, Desi, it made me think. So here we are. This is Sunday afternoon. We freely gathered this morning, and we were just praying and being thankful that we had that opportunity. And then if we're supposed to go and expand the gospel, well, like we can look at numbers where the gospel is exploding, and it's in places where people are having to secretly meet.
right.
And then figure out some creative way to spread the gospel so that they, at the very least, don't go to jail
Yeah.
and potentially lose their life. And so,
Yeah, Christianity has been for a while now exploding in Iran,
Yeah.
in a place that you can't do that.
yeah,
Right.
You know, and so, yeah, I know. That's why I pray that prayer often. God, do not let us take for granted the privilege of freely meeting, because we do take it for granted to the point that we can neglect it super easy and not
Yeah.
even realize its power. And yeah, I could chase that rabbit into, you almost want there to be hardship
Yeah.
just so that we would focus, but you actually don't.
yeah,
want
I don't
that,
really
but
want that.
don't really
But
want
like I
that,
said, and
but-
I know that I'm just as good as everybody else about leaving these walls, and so
right.
don't take that as that you should feel bad and be like me. Don't take it like that at all. I'm just saying we as the American Christian, we're not doing stellar in some areas.
It's really a wheat and tear situation here. We see those places, the gospel booming, because it's all wheat. The tares aren't going to risk their life for something that they don't mean anything
Go
to
on
them.
and preach a little bit.
That's
then,
not-
yes, go ahead.
Not inconvenient. They're not going to be inconvenienced for the gospel.
There's no such thing as a cultural Christian
There's
in
no-
a place
that's
like
right.
that.
Right.
That just I say it because it's going to help me sell more,
Whatever.
whatever, or make better contacts for this. There's none of that. It's I'm going risking my life, so I better believe it. And they do, and then they go out and share it. And here it's like, well, as long as we're done in time for the Hogs, go Hogs, SEC champs, we're excited.
Sure.
But as long as we're done in time for that, and I know there's a lot of jokes about it.
Sure.
I'm not taking shots at people who made jokes about it this morning, because most of them would have stayed if you ran long. But but that is the American mindset. Well,
When I can fit it in, I'll fit it in.
I've got.
I'm going to climb on a soapbox for a second, but we're having Anchor Generation tonight, and I'm excited. But man, getting people back into church on Sunday after COVID, on Sunday nights after COVID, has been awful.
Yeah.
And why? Listen, guilty. It was kind of comfortable. It was kind of nice to just come to church or watch church online and then relax and have a day of. And now we're saying, oh well, maybe we need to gather together more. Maybe we need to pray together more. Maybe we need to show up on Wednesday nights and have prayer meeting, but it's inconvenient. But if we have an event and we're giving away free stuff, we'll be there. It's just church becomes, what am I getting out of it? Because it's an American church, and because we're fat and sassy spiritually, instead of these other places where it's like, hey, to go is to risk my life, but it means that much to me that I'm willing to die to meet with other believers,
Right.
and worship and pray together and seek what God has for
Well,
us.
and back to the original point of what we were saying about being equipped to minister, and then the saints going out and ministering. Brother Clayton at his church, they've experienced pretty much a full-fledged revival
Absolutely.
over the last year and a half, and the vast majority of the people who have been brought to the Lord have been regular men in his church. Regular men doing regular jobs, living regular lives, that have gotten serious about sharing the gospel with people, and they take it to the gospel, and they bring the person in. They're like, hey, he prayed, receives Christ. He wants to get baptized.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, okay, well, we'll fit them in this Sunday. It's like, it's a legit revival, and it has started the way I think it's supposed to start in the New Testament. You know what I mean? You have the example of Peter, the first message, but even he wasn't the only one preaching that day.
Right.
The first message, a lot of people get saved, but from then on, and I'm not against crusades and those types of things.
No.
Billy Graham bringing thousands to the Lord, and those it has a place.
Yeah.
But it's not the primary model. The primary model is, like you just said, the saints come together in a gathering for equipping, for encouragement, for Christ-like fellowship that manifests the Spirit, the power of the Holy Spirit amongst us, and that recharges us on a regular basis to go out and do ministry
Yeah.
for another week or for
Yeah.
another few days, even sometimes, or for just that day sometimes,
Yeah.
is as far as it gets you sometimes. But yeah, that the more the lay Christian, the non-vocational, non-professional Christian takes the gospel to the world,
Yeah.
the more the gospel is taken to the world. That's the
Absolutely.
simplest way
Yeah.
that you can say it. So
Well, and we're a long way from where we started and from the sermon this morning, but I mean, I think that's why so many pastors get burned out and stays are so short and ministries in general are so short because they're being asked to do their job and the job of their 150, 200 members of their church. And then we're like, well, I don't understand why you're so tired. You only work 2 days a week. Well, listen, because our community desperately needs people to stand up and be Jesus in front of them. And I'm the only one. And when I say I'm talking about you guys more than anything. Like, that's why y'all get burned out. That's why, I saw a pastor that I dearly love, and he was talking about, sabbaticals and how he, and I'm like, bro, like, you guys know my heart is for ministers. And so, man, I'm like, whatever we can do to take the load off of your plate, that's what we should be doing. Your job is to help me do my job. And if I'm doing that, then everybody's job's easier. It's just lighter.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. So steering back to the sermon, right? Ephesians 4:29 was kind of the meat verse today, that we shouldn't have any foul or rotten or no good language coming out of our mouth. Let that not come from your mouth at all. But what is good to edify, what is good to build up. And so I was going to see what we thought either way, positive or negative. What are some times where that has been evidenced in your life, either where you have been the person speaking the language that spreads rot, or speaking the encouragement, speaking the love, speaking the edification language, or where that's happened to you or someone that you know, because we all understand the power of words when it's happened to us, positively or negatively. And I joked around about somebody calling me fat this morning, and they didn't actually call me fat. That's just what I heard. That was my fat grace translator, or lack of grace translator. It's me. It's my insecurities coming out, right? Because I know that in my recent marriage, I've got a little comfortable and put on a few fluffy extra pounds, and but like, if somebody would have said, like, man, you kind of gaining weight, huh? Like, we act like that doesn't bother us, but it bothers us.
Yeah.
Now I'm used to being bald now. Like, truly, I'm so used to being bald now, and there's so many positives that come with it, and so many things that it makes life easier. And the fact that my wife actually likes it this way, that helps. But so that doesn't really bother me. But when you first start losing your hair, it doesn't feel so good. But man, kind of get thin up there. Like, so we know how that negative impacts, but we also know how the positive impacts. I've given a story before of my dad whenever I had worked my tail end off to play college football, and I was at that 3 or 4 day mark where you're missing home, missing mama, missing everything. If you're back home, everything would be great and life would be crazy with gravy with and all the things. And I think back to that because I think, what if my dad would have said, yeah, you know what, you're right. You're too far away, or it's too hard, or blah, 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 blah. How easy it would have been to pack in my stuff. But he didn't. He encouraged me. He spoke love into me. He spoke truth and grace into me and reminded me of what I really cared about. And those words changed the direction of my life, or kept me on the direction of my life where I was already heading. Let me put it that way. And so, words make a huge difference. And I love that verse because it's given us that, like, you can speak death or you can speak life. And that is taking us into next week a little bit, where we're talking about speaking wisdom. And we'll be literally talking about that choice and what that looks like. But what is, anything come to mind? I know it's so hard to think of a story on the spot.
Well, I know you spoke to this, and I think it's where you said it's a good place to start. But it's just the starting point, because we all think immediately of using quote unquote foul language, and I definitely, that's some places that I always think about, but I think I tend to think they're normally, because I've never I've never had any issue with foul language. I don't really have any explanation for that. I mean, like everybody around me, I think there's some point that kids feel free to start exploring their vocabulary, but it just, I don't know, that always seemed wrong to me, and so I never did. And then even in my vocations along the way, like this is probably the only place that I've worked that wasn't the primary way to communicate with everybody. But it just never, that's never been a thing. So I always will jump on that one because that's easy for me.
Yeah.
That one's
Yeah.
super easy. I've never say bad words. Yeah. So, but I used to be really good at talking about people, and that's the same, and probably worse because it's hidden. And I say that meaning like if you've got a good story to tell somebody, they want to hear that good story. So you've spread all of this
Insinuation and
yes,
whatnot.
and like you, as you said, like you put all this putrid, disgusting stuff out there, but everybody enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like pigs and slop, and so that's something that I've just in general that I've worked on, and like so the foul language thing was not a thing in my home, but that was so, and still can be. And so if I'm back home, that sometimes that goes to that, and if I probably just got myself in trouble. Everybody's gonna be mad at me if I don't know if they listen or not.
I think 99% of family gatherings end up there at some point. It's easy to get there. So to protect you a little bit there, Josh.
Yeah, and I think just a practical example of exactly what you're talking about is, you talked about Jake and yeah, man, we need Christian coaches. We need Christians who are coaches and do that. And that was my goal. When I was coaching, it was like, man, I want to be different. I want to be unlike any coach these kids have had, any coach in our conference, any coach. I want to share the gospel with the people that I'm coaching with. I want to be a light of the gospel to my players. And man, I can remember a guy that I love. Man, we're still great friends, and but I was always talking to him spiritually. Like, I mean, I'm talking to him about like, what's your relationship with the Lord? Where do you go to church? Where do you go? This happens a lot. And I'm like, man, he's never heard me say a cuss word. We've worked together for 4 years. I've never cussed him for like I'm crushing this stuff. I'm crushing Ephesians 4. No foul. And man, I was at a ball game and it was a tournament. We were like the next game and we're leaned up against the wall and I'm watching the game and oh man, we're gonna have this official and oh man, so and so's mom's here and it's gonna be like all things. And he looks at me and goes, Dusty, you're the most negative person I know.
Ouch.
And dude, that stuck with me. That's been 20 years. And I thought, I've never cussed in front of him, but foul language has escaped my lips daily for the last 4 years. And, I can't hardly say that without getting emotional because like, this is a guy I felt like I was spiritually investing in.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't doing the naughty no-nos.
Right.
But I wasn't speaking life. I was speaking life at times, and I was speaking death at times. And we know that, a fountain can't bring forth both good water and bitter water. And I was doing that. And then I wonder why I'm being ineffective in sharing the gospel or in being the light or seeing revival on my teams or seeing whatever. Well, it's because I'm dabbling in the world. And yes, there were lines I wouldn't cross. And I was so busy patting my back saying, look how good you're doing at being different than everyone else, that I wasn't looking at the ways I was being the same as everyone else. And we weren't called. Right. We aren't called to that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just a practical example of exactly what you're talking about this morning. I wish I had the other, the other side of that testimony, but the reality is that's why it's more than don't say this. It's what are you saying? And what is it edifying? Is it lifting up to the hearer? or is it tearing down?
Right.
And if it's tearing down, then you're negating all the work you're doing at trying to be the light and the positive example to these people.
Right. Yeah. He gives the sapros is the word for foul or bad or whatever, and that is a term for rottenness. It's the term that's used for the bad fruit on the bad tree. And we talked about how, you know, a rotten apple does literally, scientifically, biologically, however, you know, whatever the word is, the botany of it, it literally spreads rot to the other apples in the bunch, which is why we have that saying. And because we think that sometimes that our words are in a chamber, but they're not.
Yeah.
They spread, you know, they spread like wildfire sometimes. And so he gives the rot as the negative, and then he gives edify, or it's like an architectural term, to build up, to edify, to make something strengthened. And so if you put the negative in an architectural term too, it would be like, you know, everybody, I say everybody, I like a good demo day, right? It's fun to tear things out because I don't have to worry about messing something up in a demo day. That's really the reason that I like it, is because I'm a bull in a china closet and I get to be me in a demo day. But at the same time, if you just randomly walk into a house and tear down a wall, and that's a load-bearing wall, you didn't just tear down that wall. You just tore down that house without even realizing it. And that's kind of the same thing that our words can do, our negative words, or on the positive side, they can build up. And so I think a practical example of this where it really matters and hits home is for anyone that has kids, right? A parent, or maybe you work with children and those types of things, because I think children hang on our words way more than we realize they do. And so the power of your tongue as a parent, grandparent, uncle, aunt, person who has influence over young people is so big, so much bigger than you realize. And so we need to evaluate that. What are we saying on a regular basis to our children? Are we speaking life? Are we speaking encouragement? Are we speaking God-inspired pathways and thought patterns into their mind? Or are we confirming what inside their scared, sinful self already is starting to believe about themselves? And, you know, one thing that I've learned that I did on the wrong end of that as a parent, recently was talking to Presley. I don't think she'll mind me sharing this. I'm trying to do that evaluation of, is it okay to share this right now, type of thing, right in real time. But we were talking about, you know, how we have feelings and how we feel things and all that. And because I wanted her to be graceful and merciful to everyone, oftentimes I would say things that would invalidate her position, not meaning to.
Right.
Not that what you feel isn't true, but it is true. But we also had this opportunity to forgive. We also had this opportunity to see that, you know, put ourselves in their shoes and to see it their direction. But I would also often say those things in a way that what I was really communicating was, your feelings don't matter. Your feelings aren't true. You just need to worry about them. Well, over time, that doesn't do good.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not, you know, it is what it is. Like, I messed that up. I've said, I'm sorry. And, you know, she forgave me and we're moving on with life. And she's learning, you know, the true side of that. And that's that's one example. But, you know, you're an idiot. Why do you always do stuff like this? You're so stupid. You know, those types of things that we say in outbursts of anger, in our wrath, you know, in our frustration, in our bitterness, that list that Paul gives in verse 31, those things that we say in those moments, they carry much more weight than we realize, and we must be more careful with our words. We must be. And at the same time, we have such an opportunity to speak life, to speak Jesus into our kids, if we will. You know, you're a child of the King of Kings. You know, the creator of this universe wanted you to be drawn breath and has a plan for your life. And I believe with everything in me that God created you to do something special for his name. Now, if you have a lifetime of hearing things like that, what direction do you think that kid goes?
Yeah.
Or the opposite way, whichever one that you speak, are you speaking rot or are you speaking life? There's power.
This unfortunate part is that if you hear both of them, one of those comes across louder than the other.
There you go.
And it's the negative one usually. And so it's I hate that.
I think psychology says there's some stat, most stats are made up on the spot, but I think it's 9 positive statements. There has to be 9 positive statements made to erase one negative statement because we hang on to the negative so much easier, so much more naturally do we hang on to the negative. So you may think that you're fairly balanced in your speech, but for your mind's sake, you actually have to be so much more skewed to the speaking life to outdo any speaking rot that it can't be anywhere near even for it to actually land in the heart and ears of the hearer of those words. So
that makes me think of coaching days when you have a kid and you feel like you're always bragging on this kid, and then he comes to you upset and it's like, hey, coach, dude, you've done nothing but ride me for the last 2 weeks. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, well, I said this, and he's, oh, you did.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know you didn't admit, but they do. Like, it's not that they drown that out. It just
here's the I fall into this category that I speak truth and love about people to other people about that person, but I'm terrible at doing it to them.
there you go.
And so it's good, I'm saying a lot of good things, but I have to oh no, I told somebody the other day that you this, that, or the other, and that may be true, but now it sounds like I'm trying to cover myself. No, that's not at all how I feel about you.
That makes me think. You go with the construction terms there. That would be like what we do when we do that. And there's good in sharing good about other people to other people. Don't get me wrong, but it would be like somebody coming up to you and be like, "Man, did you see that storm yesterday? It was so rainy. It was so much lightning. It was so cold. It was so whatever. And I was out there living in that." And it would be like you saying, "Oh, I built this house for you over here, but I didn't tell you could go live in it. I forgot to tell you to go live in that thing. Sorry you had to live through that thunderstorm. We have I can hear the thunder right now. We have impending thunderstorms on us right now. It makes me think about that. That would be what that's like.
I'm finding, and I don't even know how to rectify this yet because I'm still, I think, discovering. I apparently have a very aggressive way of communicating sometimes, and that's not I know when I'm trying to be aggressive, and so now I stop and think apparently I sound this way when I'm not being aggressive at all. So if I am being aggressive, what the heck does that sound like?
Right.
But I'm like I said, I'm discovering this, and I don't know what to do about that. Occasionally I say something and immediately can see that shift that I have to start trying to fix it somehow because it was not. But apparently when I say things to people, it comes out very aggressive, and so and I know that, and now I'm like, how many times have I done that?
Right.
And what have I created because of that?
Yeah, it's good.
Well, I think, being a middle school principal, my wife has told me a couple times that, especially some of our 7th grade girls are like, "Oh, Coach Wright's so scary." And I'm like, what? I'm like, I feel like I'm nice and I always go away. So, but it's fun to see those girls who come into your building as 7th graders and they're like, "Oh, Coach Wright's, don't he's basically it's that I'm big and I'm bold and it's like that makes me automatically somewhat intimidating." But then you go out of your way to start tearing that wall down and begin to build some rapport with these students. And before long, they're coming to your office to say, "Hey, good morning, coach. Just wanted to say hi." And like what that does for me in the end is way more than the effort it's taken to break that wall down to say, "Hey, like," and we talk in our building a lot. Like, "Hey, if you get sent to my office, then I am scary and intimidating. But if you want to just come by and say hi, if you want to come by and just see how things are going, or you need somebody to speak some positive over your life, like just swing by. I'd love to." But when we are those people, those life givers to others, it's amazing how much life you get back just from people not avoiding you, not avoiding that. Not saying, "Oh man, what's he going to say today?" But just like, "Hey, like, I'm glad to see you." Like, it's nice for someone to be, when you're coaching, especially in bad years, no one's glad to see you. And so like now it's like, "Hey, I've got some kids that are happy to see me," and that makes you feel good. And I'm sure in ministry, I know that's true in ministry, the ministry that I do, but I'm sure, no one wants the worship pastor to be like, "Well, he sings like an angel, but I sure don't want to be around him because I don't know what he's going to say or if he's going to bite my head off," And so,
Well, and like I think back now to things, and where Michaeline has told me, "So and so thinks that you're scary," and I'm like, "Well, that's weird. I don't know. That's yeah," and or a comment like, "Well, nobody says anything to you because they're scared of you," and I'm like, I don't know why. I mean, like, there's probably some folks that have a reason to feel that way, but they're very few. I've always adhered to as far as it depends on me to live peaceably with everybody.
Yeah.
I'm real low key. I try to respect everybody and all of the things, but apparently I'm aggressive.
let me ask you guys a question that kind of piggybacks off this idea. So we're this way with each other somewhat, and I think about, someone came up to me the other day at school and was particularly talking about me and Stuart. And Stuart's one of my very best friends in the whole world. I love Stu, and he's gonna love hearing his name on build because he gets super excited. So Stuart Creamer, woo! Anyway, but someone came up and said, "Dude, are you and Coach Creamer friends?" And I was like, "Yeah, like I love that guy." What because he wasn't standing right there. I'm like, "Yeah, dude, Coach Creamer's awesome. I love that guy." And they said, "Well, y'all are always so mean to each other that I didn't know if it was playful or." So I guess what I'm asking is, where does that fall in this conversation of, it doesn't just say, what is uplifting to the one you're saying it to, but it says uplifting to the hearer.
Yeah.
Even though we're fine jockeying back and forth and having fun, how far is too far when other people don't get the joke?
Right. It's a great point, and there were some points that I wanted to make about that and about sarcasm, those types of things, and how they're dangerous too. They're playing with fire.
Yeah.
And you and I joke about, that if we're talking bad about each other, then we're good, and when we're giving compliments, we're uncomfortable.
Yeah, right.
And there's some biological aspect to this where when a group of men or just even a pair, like two guys together, like part of that ribbing that takes place is on a biological level to see, is this person trustworthy? Does this person have anything to them, or are they going to fall apart with a little ribbing? Like if one man sees another man, falls apart, like you joke with them a little bit, and they fly off the handle about it. It's like, okay, that's somebody I can't count on when the bullets are flying, or when the spears are getting chunked, or however far back you want to go. And so there's that aspect to it. Part of it is just guys ribbing guys, figuring out, who can I trust, who can I count on, in those types of things. And to that point, I guess maybe it's okay and it's normal. But we do have to be careful with it.
Yeah.
We do have to be careful with it. And I've really been convicted of it lately, of really trying to be aware of not letting that be a habit. of being sarcastic or being very careful with my sarcasm, because it is a way to build rapport sometimes. I think of my my 10-year-old son Jackson. Like, I rib him some, but I've backed way off the ribbing in the last 6 or 8 months, because where I was trying to build rapport, I was like, that's actually not working, and it's actually kind of immature what you're trying to do. And so, when I do joke like that, it's not about something very serious.
Right.
Yeah.
And the things that are serious, I'm really trying not to joke around about, because I don't want to build confusion in his mind and his heart and in our relationship. I actually have him completely fooled, because we were having a conversation on the way to baseball practice yesterday, and he said, you two will love this. He said, Daniel, I think you're the wisest person I've ever known. And I was like, can you say that one more time while I'm recording, please? So, no, he did say that, but we were having he's an exceptional young man, and can carry on a conversation like he's 30. And so we were having a pretty deep conversation, and I was sharing some pretty deep truth concepts about some stuff about people and just stuff in general. And he said that, and it's just kind of a reminder of, well, we've come a long way in our relationship, where there wasn't that trust and that rapport before. But I think if the Lord hadn't have placed that on my heart to say, this is breaking down your relationship. This isn't building it. Stop doing that. Yeah. And having a wife that helps you see things more clearly than maybe you can see them too. With all 4 of my children, thank God. It's just that moment of like, hey, I think you've been getting this right recently more often than not, and it was kind of cool. So
that is cool.
So you brought up sarcasm, and that's actually something that I now really dislike, and it's because lots of we've misused that word. We say something's sarcastic when we're doing something in good fun, or we're joking around, which is not sarcasm. Because if you look up sarcasm, because this was a point of contention several months ago in our house, and I said I'm number one not a huge joker. Everybody, I'm always kind of here and I laugh at all the things that everybody. But I know the other day, Dusty was set up for me to burn him, and it was so good. But I wanted to tell somebody else to do it, because it's just that's not necessarily me. I went ahead and did it anyway, and everybody laughed, and Dusty laughed, and it was.
If you get burned by Josh, you're burned.
You're burned. If he goes and takes that shot, it's gonna hurt.
But the idea of being sarcastic has taken on
different
people. So people have misused. Well, I don't even know if it's misused. I think so. Anyway, if you look up sarcasm, it says it's a form of verbal irony used to mock, ridicule, or convey contempt, where the speaker says the opposite of what they actually mean. And so, as what it says, you actually are being mean.
Right.
Yeah. You meant to be mean when you're sarcastic. You meant to be a jerk. You're not. It's not actually having fun or playing. It's the thing that you say to make fun of that kid that's not good at sports, and you.
Come on, Bo Jackson.
Yes, that. You tend that's. But when we do it in a loving relationship where there's mutual, you don't leave with your feelings hurt, but just back to what you were saying, the world will end up seeing something completely different, and you do it to the wrong person, then now you've created a hurt. Or what we were finding is there would be something really mean said, and then I was just being sarcastic. Well, either way, you were being mean.
Call it what you want.
Yeah.
I call it being a jerk. No. Yeah. I mean, I literally have a shirt that says sarcasm is my love language. It's an old T-shirt that I have, and that's, I freely recognize and admit that that's not a good thing. And a lot of that comes from that list that Paul has in verse 31 of bitterness and contempt and unresolved anger in your life, and that kind of boils and burns deep down here, and you know burns, and then you let those burns come out in different ways. But then you say you're being sarcastic, so then it's okay. You know, I mean, Chandler's my favorite character on Friends, because every single burn that he does is sarcasm, and I think it's hilarious. And there are studies that show that you have a higher IQ if you're good at sarcasm. I'm just saying. But oh, sorry. See, there I go. But yeah, it's one thing to do it with somebody you know and love, and you know that it's in jest and you're joking around, and you really like. You and I are good examples. We mess with each other a lot. I would literally take a bullet for you.
Same.
And if anybody was actually talking bad about you, I would say, that's not true. I know Dusty Wright. I know his heart.
Yeah.
I know how much he loves, and I know his passion, and I know how much he cares. And I know that if I needed him right now, regardless of what he had to stop doing, he'd be there.
That's right.
Unless it was at the detriment and life and limb of his own family, he would be there. And so, you know, is it okay to rib each other a little bit in those situations? I hope so, because I don't know how else to talk to you.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
but
we'd say a lot less to each other.
Right.
You brought up the idea of like the I can't think of the word, the psychology of the idea between men. Well, if you go back, because one of the things that I did is along the way is work in early childhood for like 10 years, and you know, you have to.
You should be like 110 to do all the things you've already done. Anyway, sorry.
You've got to you start understanding that little boys physically can't keep their hands off of each other. You know, you said like, can y'all not keep your hands on yourself? Well, like for most of them, it's impossible.
Frenetic energy.
They're just, you know, and I think at some point that same thing just translates into words. Like now it's you know it's weird and awkward if you were to be touching Dusty while you're standing beside him.
Right.
But you might say something, you know.
It's kind of the same thing.
It's kind of the same thing.
That's a good point, Josh. That's a good way to put that.
That is good. And I think also it's just a reminder too that like just because we can handle it, the rest of the world to get the joke has to know how much we love each other.
Sure.
And I think that's the difficulty was, you know, maybe this person for whatever reason had not seen me and Stuart enough together to where they realized that like, oh, no, I may take a shot at him even when he's not standing there, but it's the exact same shot I would have taken if he had been standing there, and I actually would have enjoyed it more if he had heard it. But they have to understand your love. I think that's a good point, and the willingness that, you know, I would go to the ends of the world for you guys, for Stuart, and yeah, that might mean I'm gonna take shots. Really, Josh, because he doesn't give back, it's not as much fun to take shots at Josh.
See, now I've started sitting here thinking, do people not do that because I'm so mean?
No.
Is this all coming back to that? Like people are actually scared.
Well, I'm just telling you, dude. That soul ripper you gave him the other day after FCA, that was a soul ripper.
That was
Can
good.
I share it? Because I'd love to share it real quick.
It's good. It's so good. I don't even mind.
Kennedy gives her devotion at FCA, and it was good. And it was well thought out, and it was organized, and it was all the things. It was heartfelt, all the things. It was wonderful, and it didn't chase rabbits, and it it did all these things. It was great. And Josh said something to the effect of, you know,
I said, did you put that together for Kennedy?
Yeah.
And Dusty says, no, she did that all on her own. And I said, maybe you should let her start putting yours together then.
Boom! Bump set a spike.
I will say what made it so good is that I was such a proud
right.
dad.
That's the thing. Like, you were like,
I was
no,
so
she
like,
did it
no,
all.
man.
Like,
Let me tell you how awesome she is. She did this all by herself, and I'm so proud of her. Oh, maybe she should start writing your stuff on something. Okay. You got
it was brutal.
It was good. It was good.
It was a right hook that you never. I didn't see it coming either. I was rolling.
I feel like I'm never I've always got to come back because I usually see things coming. I had no answer. All right, I'm gonna go take this trash out. I'm gonna go back to
I'm
work.
so sorry. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I should have said it. I didn't mean that. I was just joking.
I'm so glad it was Josh.
Right.
Because the rest of y'all would have been hanging, y'all would have put the scoreboard up, and that'd been like 1,000,000-1,
Right.
just on that. But Josh is like, okay, I'm sorry. I hate that I kind of said that, but it was good.
It was good. I'm still laughing about it, to be honest. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, I'm still crying about it.
It was good. And Kennedy's devotion was good.
Man.
That's what set it up. That's what made this work
Yeah.
so well.
Yeah.
It was an easy devotion to brag on. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway.
For sure.
I think we've lost all control.
Oh,
Where are
I
we?
think so. Well, we've almost made an hour, so we're doing good there. Back to the meat of what today is that our words matter, and when we can speak life into a situation, or we can speak death, and when we say death and life, we mean like we can speak the positive life bringing attributes of Christ into our conversations. You can speak them into people's lives, literally, or you can spread hate and discontent. And
yeah, the one last thing that I wanted to say, I didn't say it this morning, that I would like to say about the whole concept in general, when it comes to really words are all of our words are like seeds, right? And so you're casting out seed for good fruit, or you're casting out seed for bad fruit. The one thing I want to say, kind of on the opposite end of that, is as a hearer of people's words, you have the choice of whether or not to receive that word, and 2, you need to be aware of people who are speaking deceitful, manipulative, rotten words into your life, especially when they're doing it in a backdoor way, where they're planting a seed into your ears, trying to plant a seed into your mind about someone else, or about a situation, or about truth in general, where they're really deceptively trying to plant this seed into your mind. Be careful of that. Do not allow people to manipulate you with their word. Be aware of the power of other people's words, and you do not have to allow those words to take root into your mind and into your heart, because the longer you let those lies rest in you, the more opportunity they have to grow roots into you and affect your character, and affect your mindset, and affect your heart, and affect your outlook, affect your beliefs about yourself, affect your beliefs about relationships, all things. It can bleed out into so many different ways, so your belief system is affected by words. We think that our brain, our mind, searches and tells us the truth, but what our brain does is searches for things to confirm what we believe to be true, which is why Jesus talks about renewing our mind. And so we don't want to have a mind that's driven by words of death, words of rot, words of decay, words of Satan, words of lies. That's the verse 25 is where we started. Don't stop being false, stop being fake, stop telling lies, and tell the truth. Who is the father of lies? Satan. And God is the father of truth, because he is truth. And so just be aware of that. Just be aware of that, of the power of your words, and the power of hearing and letting words of other people implant.
That's
you.
good. Like, I mean, I get what you're saying there. By renewing our mind, we don't have to receive those negative words.
You don't have to receive it.
And just because somebody says something to you does not mean it's true. But you've got to be able to weigh that against.
But if you don't recognize that, you will receive it as true, whether it's a lie or not.
Yeah.
And whether it's about you, or about her, or about him, or about that.
You hear that, you hear something, you're like, well, that's not true. And the whole, we'll consider the source.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You say that to people a lot. This person never says anything good about anybody, so why would you expect them to say something good about you? I don't know.
Avoid that person like the plague.
That's right. Well, I want to use my final thought to touch on something that we didn't touch on this morning, and I think it's easy. I've known this verse my whole life, and the context of everything around it stood out to me this morning like a giant bullseye, and that's verse 30 of Ephesians 4. It says, "Don't grieve God's Holy Spirit. You are sealed by him for the day of redemption."
Mm-hmm.
We think if you have any question about how important words are in this context of what we're saying and how important our words are, we're given the directive that our words have the ability to grieve the Holy Spirit, who we've been sealed by for the day of redemption. If it moves the heart of God,
Yes,
how important is it?
pretty important.
Yeah.
I
mean,
love it. It gets more important.
There are very few things I think that grieve God's heart the way that how we treat others, how we use our words to build up or to tear down, matter. And so the little things that we think are insignificant, just little blow-off comments or little, oh, I don't know, sounds right, I'm going to go ahead and share that with someone else because what it sounded right when they said it to me. It has the power to grieve the heart of the person of the Holy Spirit. That's pretty significant.
That's
And I
very
think if we
significant.
take that mindset, we'll guard our tongues in a little bit different way.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
Yep, that's a good.
That'll sum it up.
Yep, that'll wrap it all up. I do want to encourage you to check out, if you haven't, check out previous episodes of Build. Go and check out Sunday's sermons. You can do all of that by going to fbcdan.com. You can find all of the information there that you need there. There's information on how you can get connected to our church locally. And I want to always encourage you to be involved locally with your church, whether that's here or that's 1,000 miles away, wherever you are. Asia, I think this last week, we had somebody download us in Asia. I don't know. Be involved wherever you are, and serve, because that's what we're called to do.
Amen.
And we will see y'all next week.
Peace.
See ya.
Well, that's it for this week's episode of Build. Remember, what we build with our hands fades, but what we build on Christ lasts forever. If today's episode encouraged you, share it and keep the conversation going. You can find past messages, upcoming events, and ways to connect at fbcdan.com. Let's keep building our faith one brick at a time. We'll see you next time.